All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I think it's starting to record now. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started at 7:02. I want to make sure to respect the time of our panelists that are here with us tonight, because I know these college kids have lots to do. So welcome to our first of hopefully a couple at least of our college competition series. So the objective behind these sessions is to give athletes that are thinking about competing in college, or maybe even just contemplating the possibility of competing in college, what the steps are, what they should be thinking about, what they should be considering, and what they should be looking for. What level should they be thinking about? What are their options? What are the next steps that you should take? And from the girls that are here, what is some experiences that they've had from the recruiting process, from visiting colleges, from actually being in college competition? Both these ladies have been in college competition, and so they can give you a perspective on the commitment load, how much time it requires, and the things that you should be thinking about and what their experiences have shown them. And Abby's experience in particular as a transfer is also a really great experience to share, because it's also showing that where you end up first isn't necessarily where you have to stay and isn't where you have to be. Committing to one place doesn't mean you're there for an eternity, and you need to find what fits right for you. And I think Abby can probably speak to, you know, what didn't work for her at the place there where she was. When did she realize that maybe that wasn't where she wanted to be? And then how did she find the right fit? And hopefully Texas A&M is the place that she's going to stay. So we're excited for her as well. So I'm going to share my screen and show, we're going to be talking through a presentation today that we have put together, the three of us have put together for you, to talk about the different components of college competition. So Lauren and Abby, is it showing up?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, great. So really, we are starting here with just like the Cambridge community, but we're really thinking maybe bigger moving forward. We can include more sports, we can include more schools, and really share this information, because I think that really there's a lot more out there that want to compete that just aren't. And I was going to show these numbers before we got started. This is from the NCAA. About how many students actually go from high school competition to college competition. And you can see here is the overall NCAA count. So these percentages are very, very low. And this is just for all divisions put together for any particular sport. And you can see swimming is right here. This is for the men. We're looking at about 7.2. And then for the women, we're looking at 7.5. But you can see how many athletes we have in high school, and we lose them. We lose them afterwards. They get burned out. They don't feel like they're capable of competing at that level. They don't know about the time commitment, and we lose them. And so you can see how low the percentages are, you know, from Division I, Division II, Division III in these various sports. My objective is we need more of these. We need more athletes sticking with it, not only because swimming is such an amazing sport. We're a little biased in that regard, but because college competition is so good for students, student athletes. It's about a well-rounded experience. It's about contributing to your college experience. It's about teaching you higher levels of commitment, and all of these other things that you get from a college competition experience. And again, that doesn't have to be at Division I. It can be at all different kinds of levels. But I wanted to show that because this is really the bread and butter of why I hit up these girls this summer about doing these, because I was like, this is wrong. We need to have more of our kids thinking about college competition. And I really think Cambridge has the talent to pursue that and to push our kids to think more about that. So I'm going to let these girls introduce themselves. Sorry for blowing you guys up here, but if you guys could just take a minute, talk about, you know, where you are, what your events are, give kind of a, we're going to, as you've seen in our presentation, we're going to get more into the nitty gritty, but just kind of an overview of why you want to help out with this presentation and what you want to do, what you want kids to get from it. So Abby, why don't you go first?
All right, so I'm Abby Grottle. I'm going to be a sophomore in college. I'm currently at Texas A&M, but I was originally at Pitt. And I swim distance freestyle, like Lauren. I swim like the mile, the 500. I dabble in 4 a.m. and 2 free. It's kind of, we'll just see what happens usually when it comes to that. And then I just really wanted to help out this because I've had kind of a unique experience when it comes to, I guess, recruiting. The first time I was recruited in high school was the first time early recruiting was a thing, which a lot of y'all would probably experience that are on this. Um, it used to be senior year of high school where people were recruited, and then my first year they started recruiting junior year. So that was interesting. And then I ended up obviously transferring. So that was a whole nother process because your priorities might be different than they are, when they were in high school as they were after, 1 year of college. So that was a little different for me as well. So I'm just excited to bring my experience and learnings to y'all to help y'all out with recruiting. And I highly encourage swimming in college because it's super fun.
Thanks, Abby.
My name is Lauren Johnson. I go to the University of West Florida. I'm entering my third year at the school. I also swim distance events, and then I play around with the 4 IM and the 200 back, just depending on where they need to put me. And I fell in love with the school not only because of the academics that they provided, but also because when I walked on campus, it felt like home. And the team was just amazing. So I had a really good recruiting process because I knew that I wanted things that reminded me of home and that I wasn't going to feel super homesick. So again, the recruiting process is different for everyone. I was kind of that phase where I had to do it my senior year, which kind of helped. I had matured and kind of seen what I was looking for down the road in my senior year rather than bam, you're in high school and okay, now I'm going to college. So again, we have very different experiences, but all of us are the same because we love the sport of swimming, and I highly recommend doing it in college because it's super fun.
And for those of you that don't know me, Lauren Hall, coach at Cambridge. I've coached at Cambridge since the program opened in 2012. Super proud of what we've been able to do in the past couple of years. Lauren was part of a really pivotal point where we were building our program, and then it really hit a peak with Abby her senior year, and we were able to get our state championship and last year's state runner-up. So that was really awesome. I had my college swim experience at Connecticut College, so I did Division III. I originally came from California, and when I was thinking about swim, and I desperately wanted to compete, but I wanted to study abroad. I wanted to do a lot of academics. I wanted to have the swim experience because I love to compete, but I didn't want it to be everything in my college experience. Not to say that that is the truth for either of these girls, but I also wanted a small school. And you can't really find many small schools that have Division I or Division II. They don't exist. So I went Division III. It was a good fit for me. Defined seasons, which we'll talk about in a little bit. My recruiting was very different from either of the girls because for Division III, you have to reach out first. And that's true now, and it was true back then. And so you need to establish a point of contact first, and then they can pursue you. And I remember the recruiting process being so fun. I loved the coaches wanting me to come to their schools and wanting me to come and visit. It was my senior year was a lot of fun. I visited a lot of schools my junior year and then did a lot of recruiting senior year. So we all have, the three of us combined, have a wealth of experience that we can share with you. And at the end, there will be an open forum that you can ask specific questions. So we've kind of already talked about these goals, but we are going to talk about the process of college recruitment, and the girls have already kind of touched upon that. We'll be able to answer your concerns about eligibility or provide you with any resources you might need moving forward, and connect you with a network of college athletes, starting with these girls, and then that network can branch out from there because they know a wealth of people as well at various schools. So once you jump into this pool of connections, you can get a lot of your questions answered by simply reaching out. So the girls have already talked a lot about this when they talked about why they want to compete, the idea of balance. So the idea that, you can have a point where you step away from your academics and you get to do some athletic experiences. You get to do a lot more on campus and meet more people that you might not otherwise know. It's a balance between the mental and the physical. You get to have that release that tends to, release those endorphins, which is positive for your overall well-being, your physical and mental well-being. We know that a lot of students struggle with depression and other kinds of things, and athletes don't have as much of that because they are getting these endorphins from their participation in these athletic events. You have a sense of community, a sense of belonging, which also helps make you feel like you are wanted. You have a sense of personal fulfillment because you get a new coach and a new perspective on your training. So you might be able to do things you hadn't been able to do before. And I love the gear. You get all this free stuff. I remember every state championship, or not state championship, every conference championship, you got a new like fast skin, you got a new fast suit for free. And I was like, what? I get that for free? I don't have to buy it? And so all the gear was pretty awesome too. Girls, did I leave anything out?
The only thing I was going to add is when you're a freshman, it's scary because the school is so big, but as soon as you walk on campus, you already automatically know 30 other people. And so there's just a sense of comfort knowing that there's other people that are like you.
Yeah.
Abby, you want to add?
I would agree. And also, like, kind of talking to the life balance, like when you have some practice and stuff, it gives you a routine and it doesn't really give you time to procrastinate on your academics. So it kind of makes you a better student as well.
I would agree with that as well. So I am going to be sending out this presentation to all of you because they have links in them to websites that have a lot of this information. So I have kind of consolidated it into small portions. But once you get this, once at the end of this presentation, you're going to put your email address down. I am going to email you this presentation so then you can have access to all these links. But the first thing is, the first question that most athletes say is, well, I'm not good enough, so therefore I'm not going to go and compete. Well, there's a whole lot of different levels of competition that we can talk about. And the level of competition that you go for is not also correlating with the size of the school that you want. So when you're thinking about what school you want to attend, you should be thinking about, do I like the idea of a large school? Do I want a little bit of a medium-sized school? Do I want a small school? Do I want, what is it that about your environment that you're looking for? So here are just some brief kind of overviews of the different divisions, right? So Division 1, this is where you see it on television. This is the highest level of competition. The times are the most competitive. They're the biggest schools. They're of a significant time commitment, and it's all year round. So if you are in Division 1, you are training, you have a season, but you are training all year. There is a significant time commitment associated with that because of the level of competition that you have. There are recruitment rules about when, as Abby was talking about, when she was allowed to be recruited her junior year. There are rules about when they're allowed to contact you and reach out to you in a formal way. But this is where you have money for scholarships and other kinds of opportunities. So Division 1 has the most money. If you're looking for a school that has a bigger endowment, that has money for athletics, you're looking at Division 1 schools. And so that's where Abby's experiences are going to come into play, where she can talk about that. Division 2, which is where Lauren's background is coming from. These are middle-sized schools. Some of them are larger schools. They have more restrictions than Division 1 in terms of competition and recruitment and their training. There is a more balanced time requirement, so it's a little bit less than Division 1. There are more restrictions in terms of the seasons, but not to where we're going to look at with Division 3. Not really any athletic scholarships in Division 2. So if you're looking for, you want money to swim, one, you're going to need to make sure that your talent is there because they're really, for swimming, there are not many scholarships. But two, it would be eliminating any other division besides Division 1. Division 3, which is where my background is, these are the small schools. These are very restrictive on when you're allowed to train. We had a designated, I always remember that Halloween was our start date of our season. We always came to our first practice in our, or it was November 1st, sorry. Halloween was our last night off. And then we would come in our costumes on right at the beginning on November 1st and have our first practice. There's a lot of restrictions on recruiting. So you can't reach out to these coaches until they reach out to you. There are no athletic scholarships. The idea is athletics enhances your college experience, but it is not in the entirety. It is not as significant. There really isn't a lot of as much money for athletics as there is for other parts of the school. So Division 3, you're looking for, I still want to compete, but I want to do a lot of things. right? So when I went to school, I went Division III because I wanted to do Division III water polo and I wanted to do Division III swimming. If I did Division II or Division I, you really don't have much time to do two sports. Division I, I mean, you have to be Bo Jackson to be able to do that. But really Division I, you are committed to one sport. Division II, pretty much you don't have a whole lot of other options too. Division III is when you can kind of dabble in multiple sports. And then club. Club is available at a lot of most Division I and II schools, where you can still stay in the water. You have minimal requirements in terms of, really there aren't any. You sign up, you come to practices when you want to. You can go and still compete in meets. There's lots of club meets. There are lots of very competitive club teams at some of the very top Division I schools, where kids that didn't want to commit to practicing with Division I, but they still want to swim, they do club. And so there are some really great club teams that you can still participate in. And these are really, just walk-on situations. Girls, is there anything I left out there before we get into some of the other parts of the experience?
I think one of the only things is that with Division I, I'm like 99% sure Ivy League schools are Division I, and they are, one stipulation with them is that they usually, even though they have large endowments, do not give out academic scholarships.
Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes, and so that can be from school to school. Like SEC schools are going to have money for scholarships, but Abby's absolutely right. So Ivy League schools, usually those are need-based financial aid schools. So they're going to be, you submit your FAFSA and they determine how much money you need in order to afford to go there. That's what most Division III schools are, as well as need-based financial aid. And so those are not schools. And really, to be perfectly blunt, for swimming, you need to be counting on not getting a lot of money, even if you're in Division I. So questions that you should be thinking about asking yourself when it comes to, people are in the waiting room. There we go. What kind of competition do I want? How fast do I want the pool to be? And Abby and I were kind of exchanging some emails about this, and you need to really be asking yourself, do you want to be a big fish in a small pond? Meaning, like, from the moment you step on deck your freshman year, you are like one of the top times. Like, you are big talent for that school. And that's great. That is not something you should be ashamed of. If you want that kind of experience, there are plenty of places you can go that you will feel very valued immediately as a freshman. Or do you want to be surrounded by everybody who's better than you and you kind of need to work your way up, where you want that push, you want to get that much better? Do you want to be the middle of the pack? So do you want to be immediately put on deck to swim your freshman year, but you don't really, you don't want to be the fastest? I want to still have to work to get faster. And I want to know that the program is deep, meaning that there's a lot of talent there, that there are always going to be faster people than me, right? So that there's a whole wide range. You need to be thinking about that. What do you want to be surrounded by? What do you want your time commitment to be? How much am I willing to dedicate to my training? So do I want to be committed to being in the pool 6 hours a day, or in the gym and the pool 6 hours a day? Do I want to just commit to like 2 hours a day? Do I want to commit to, so you need to be thinking about, and that's also think about traveling. All college teams travel for competition. How much are you willing to dedicate in terms of your time to that training? I'll also warn you, they practice when school is out. So when I would go home for winter break and I would have just a few days at home, the day after Christmas, I was flying out to meet up with winter training. So you need to be willing to understand that, and that was Division III, that there is a significant time commitment regardless of what level, and you need to be willing to accept that there is that commitment attached to that. What are my academic goals? So do I want to study abroad? Meaning you might want to have a program with some more restrictions. Do I want to double major? What do I want my college experience as a whole to look like? How big do I want my college competition to be in that experience? Am I in it for the experience, or am I in it for the talent and the skills? That's an honest question. Am I there to have a friend group? You can be in it for both. But there is usually one or the other that you're leaning towards as being more important to you. And there is no shame in either of those. And then as a financial concern, do I want to be somewhere that I can use the hope? Or do I want to be somewhere that I'm going to be taking on more debt, more possibility of paying out-of-state tuition, paying for a small school experience, a private school experience? How much of a financial commitment do I want to make? So that will also kind of narrow the options that you have. Abby, Lauren, what were some questions that you asked yourselves when you were looking at schools that may be beyond this?
My biggest question when I was looking at schools was the conference that I was going to be a part of. So you can look at your own team, but then you also can look at your conference. And then at the end of the day, my goal is to make it to the NCAA meet at the end of the season. And so you look at the times that you're trying to strive for, and you look at your comparison not only on your team, but how you can win conference. And our team has won conference the last 2 years. And I mean, I've made the B cuts for NCAA the last 2 years that I've swam, but I haven't been invited. So I know I'm in the right grouping because I'm still being pushed after making a goal. I'm still getting pushed after that. So I'm not just at the bare minimum for myself. I'm always reaching for something. So that's what I looked at.
I would say kind of the same for me along those lines. I was kind of looking at the conferences because, like SEC tends to be a little more deep, that conference championship, but that's also due to like there's different rules in each conference. So at SECs, those teams can bring, I think it's like up to like 24 swim standouts. These meets are much larger, but a little bit of a smaller meet. So I just wanted to see what the times were how it well as just fit on the team. It's kind of like I was at the top, middle, the bottom.
Yeah, and I think that same idea of the conference is really important. I looked at that as well. When I went to visit schools, I was looking at NESCAC, which is the New England Small Schools Conference, which is the most competitive Division III conference. Because I knew I wanted to do Division III, but I wanted to still have that competition. And so you can find tough competition if you're willing to look for it. So you just have to be willing. And I think that point of looking at the conference is a really good one. Look at the other schools that you compete against, because you're not just competing with the people on your own team, you're competing with them, but you're competing against the people in your conference. And so looking at what that competition looks like, what kind of schools are you competing against? Is your school at the top with really no one to touch them? Or is there really tight competition among those schools? And I think that's a really good point. So thank you, girls. And so one of the things you can think about, and again, this page is linked to a really great resource. And I think gauging your talent is a really good next step to thinking about, what do I want? And now where do I fit? And these girls have already really touched on some good points there about like looking at the times of all the times for each school should be posted on the website for that swim and dive team. So you can already go in there and take a look and see what you're working with, where you fit. And that's a really good thing to do, especially if you specialize in a particular event. You can go in and see what the events are that are covered currently by the people on that team. Where are the seniors? What events are they letting go of, right? Where do they need to fill gaps? That's also a really good kind of strategy to think about. But looking at what those times are and where do you fit? Can you contribute? Are you a development component? Have I not reached my peak yet? Am I coachable? And so if you're Division I, you probably already know it because of what workout group you're in. You're probably hearing it from your club coaches already. Coaches from Division I schools know you before you know them. If they will likely contact you because they've been tracking you. And as the girls said, they can start to recruit you your junior year when that window opens, and they will begin to reach out to you. But you can always reach out to them first. I really recommend that if there's a school that you love, go to that website for the swim and dive team and fill out the prospective athlete form. And do that for every school you're thinking about, because that puts you on their radar and makes contact so that you can start to have that coach thinking about you. But it's about initiating that process where you need to. But again, Division I athletics is pretty particular, and that you probably already know that you're on that track. But like I said, do your research, check out their roster, look for their teams on Twitter and Meet Mobile, where you can start to see how their teams are doing. The girls really talked about that, how they looked at, where they fit in, and what can you bring to the table. All of those things are really important. But as a freshman or a sophomore, you're not done yet, right? But you're on a trajectory. So maybe you're not fitting in those times right now as a freshman or a sophomore. What do you need to do to put yourself on that track? So do you need to talk to your club coach about getting into a different workout group? What are your goals? So if this is your dream school and your times aren't there yet, and you're a freshman or a sophomore, you're not a done deal yet, right? But that means that you need to start setting some goals. You need to start talking to your coaches, and you need to start being an advocate for yourself so that you can start to put yourself on that track to be appealing to a school like that. And as Abby has the experience of transferring, not that she needed to transfer because she didn't fit, but if you swim at one school, you can, and because you don't make it to that one school that you really want, you can always transfer there your next year. And so that is always, it's never a done deal, right? You can always find your way back to that school if that's something that you really want. But it's all about assessing where you are and where you need to go if there's a school that you have in mind. Girls, do you have anything to contribute to that?
Being a Division II athlete, and a lot of the times you do hear that Division I is this big top thing, and it really is when you look at the big conferences, but there are a lot of other Division I schools that you just haven't heard about. And we even compete against them because they're kind of on our same competitiveness, and obviously they're doing a lot more, but just because they're Division I doesn't mean that they're going to be at the very top all the time. So when you are reaching out to schools, make sure you have something that they're going to remember about you. So look on their website and say you guys had a really great meet, and then go on, or say that you're following their stuff, because if they see that you're interested, then they're going to be more likely to have you. Even if you walk on the team, everyone's on scholarship if you have gear. You're not paying for the gear, you're not paying for travel. So everyone's on scholarship if you get to walk on the team. So if you just get to walk on and be a part of it, that's better than saying, oh, well, I'm not good, and then walking away from the sport. So have something that they'll remember you by.
I would say for the just gauging your talent part, like, give yourself more credit than you'd expect. Because, like, personally, like, let's just say you're looking at a school your junior year of high school, and you want to be, I guess, like, at the middle of the program. And if your times aren't at the middle of that program yet, don't, like, shy away from that school. Because, like, personally, even, like, my senior year, like, developed a lot. And I would just give yourself room for potential. That's all I would say. Like, just because you're not at those times right now doesn't mean you can't get to it eventually.
Absolutely. And being coachable is really important. And so showing that you're dropping time, showing that you're putting yourself on that pathway to meet those expectations speaks a lot to your character and who you are, and says a lot to coaches, because they want an athlete they can develop. They want an athlete that they can mold to do what they need them to do. So I absolutely agree with what Abby's saying, is don't give up just because you don't think that you're good enough. And if you want to swim, there is a place for you. There's always a place. And so we just got to find it. And so once you've identified some schools, fill out their forms. And it's critical that in Division II and Division III that you start to reach out to those coaches, so that you can begin that process. And talk to college athletes currently. That can be college athletes that are on their team. That could be college athletes like we have here with us today. Getting their input, getting their advice, reaching out to people that are on the team. All of those things are going to help you get your questions answered and make the process easier. And again, this is linked here for the recruitment process with a lot more details. But there is, in your junior year, the NCAA clearinghouse application that you're going to fill out. And basically that's just all your information. What are you interested in competing in? Giving permission for coaches to reach out to you. This is really, really important. And so you can, and again, even if you start to fill it out later in your junior year, that's okay. But this is something that you should bookmark for what you do your junior year. And it might start the summer before, but your freshman year, if you're super talented, coaches are already tracking you, but they can't actually go and talk to you about it. And the earlier, the better that you can reach out to coaches is great. And especially for sports like swimming and diving, there's often not a lot of money for them to do a lot of on-site recruitment. So establishing a point of connection is really good. I remember when I reached out to coaches, they would say, because obviously this was back in the day before we had Meet Mobile and times weren't posted always, you know, I would send them the website for our swim team with our schedule on it. And they said, send me your times from this meet, this meet, this meet. You know, what events are you swimming at state? I want to know what those times are. And so keeping a point of contact where they can track your progress is a really good thing. There is a step-by-step guide here I've linked in this presentation for the recruitment process and reasons to justify starting it sooner or later. There is a reason why you might want to wait. Maybe it's you're indecisive about you know, what size school that you want to go to. You're indecisive about, you know, what level of competition you want to go to. Maybe you're still developing. I didn't really start competitively swimming until my freshman year of high school. And so with that, you know, expedited process, I hadn't peaked yet by the time that, you know, my junior year began. I was still developing. And so maybe I wanted to start a little bit later because I hadn't even gotten close to my best times yet. And so it's about when you hit your stride. It's about when you feel like you're mature enough to start that process. Some kids at the beginning of their junior year just are not ready to think about college. It's just too much. It's too much to think about. It's too much to process. And so starting later is just fine. But just we're giving some general guidelines here. And so here is, you know, kind of an overview of what this process looks like. You all enter the general pool. Coaches begin to initially evaluate you. They start to send correspondence out to people that might fit what they need. They continue to evaluate talent and progress. And then coaches invite recruits on official visits or extend offers to them. So that's kind of the general progression of time. And this can take place over 1 or 2 years. Eligibility, again, this is linked to the website that gives you a lot more details here, but you are eligible. You're going to create this NCAA certification account, and it's $80 for athletes. You need to make sure that you are hitting all of the course requirements that you have in high school. And I've listed all of those here. I copied and pasted it from the website so you can see that here. There are slight variations within Division 1, 2, and 3. And so you might want to look at your specific college and what they're looking for. But these are general NCAA requirements and GPA requirements for being eligible to be recruited. And minimum ACT scores for Division 1 is a 75 sum score. And then there's the SAT scores and super scores that you can all look at. Combined scores for your ACT and SATs are all listed here. Division 3 schools do their own thing. So most Division 3 schools you have to be able to be qualified to get into the school, and then swimming is on top of that. And the IVs as well. The IVs have very few that they will take that are not academically eligible first, meaning not just these minimum requirements, but the requirements that the standard the school has. And so you need to meet those requirements, and then swimming is on top of that. And so it's important to be thinking about your academics at any level, but obviously looking at your specific school is going to be important. This is just what NCAA requires, and it's pretty minimal. And really, that's all that we have today. And so we wanted to give these general information on our first opening here because we wanted to just kind of start the process. And then we're going to give more sessions moving forward that might go into more details about any one of these components of college competition. But what I wanted to make sure we had time for is for anybody who's here to unmute themselves and ask questions of either of the girls or myself about something that you heard tonight that you want to know more about, or some part of their experience you want to know more about. This is the open forum component, so I'll open it up for questions. Abby or Lauren, is there anything you wanted to add that we didn't talk about?
I don't have anything. No.
Just that there's a place for everybody. Like, you can always find your fit, no matter what speed. I've know so many swimmers of all different speeds, and they've always, like, when they go and swim in college, they always find their place, which is good. And I would say that college swimming is a really unique experience, especially, I would say at Cambridge I got a good feel for this, but like it's a lot different than club in that, like, you truly are, like, you find yourself swimming fast because you're really swimming for something more than yourself. Like, I feel like in college it's an undeniable experience of, like, a good, like, team culture. Like, you're swimming for your university, so it feels like you're swimming for such a bigger meaning. So I don't know, I think I think everybody should consider swimming in college just because of that. And also, one other thing is too, like, in the recruiting process, I think it's just as important to advocate yourself to the coaches as it is to the college athletes that you might talk to that are already on the team. You might meet on your official and stuff. I can't tell you how many times on both programs. Literally, I've only been at Texas A&M for a month now, and this has already happened, where I've had, one of our coaches, either our head coach or assistant coach, text me, "Hey, do you know blah blah blah? What can you tell me about how they train? You swum with them in practice. How do they train? How are they as a person? They care more than just about your times, but what you can also bring to the team, culture wise. And you can be talented, but they want you to work hard too. So I would make sure to realize that you're being recruited by more than just the coaches, also the athletes on the team.
And there's nothing like wearing a suit with your school emblem on there and feeling like you're representing something bigger. I remember that very distinctly. It's different than high school or club. It's a different sense of responsibility.
I do have a question, if I may.
Yes.
Great. My name is Jason Saunders. Actually, we're a friend of Lauren's and her family, and our son is a rising senior, and he's been swimming with Lauren in the same meets for a few years, at least since before she joined University of West Florida. Mm-hmm. So Aiden is a rising senior. His dream is Division I, wants to swim Division I, wants to be in a big school, wants to be in the Southeast. He's really kind of narrowed the choices significantly. But he's come to the conclusion that he will choose school over swim in terms of competing at the D1 level. And he would rather do club at a D1 rather than go to a smaller school. He just wants a big school. I mean, that's his thing. It's great that he D1 coaches have not reached out to him. We kind of talked about this before, about D1 coaches, if they want you, they would have reached out to you. They respond to him. They send him times that they're looking for. They said that they'll keep an eye on him, but they're not proactively reaching out to him. So in my view, I think he'll ultimately end up going to a D1 school and joining a club team. And he's got this idea that perhaps he could walk on. What are the odds that you could really walk on to a D1 school without being approached first?
I would say much higher than you think. I think my brother, this is a really good example. He talks about it all the time. He's going to be swimming at Cincinnati, which is a D1 school, and I guess he has one more year of high school, so he's also going to be a senior. And there was a kid on the Cincinnati swim team this past year, made it to NCAA's, fastest kid. He goes a 141, I think, in his 200 backstroke. And he actually started out on the club program his freshman year with a 152 and 200 backstroke. And eventually he just worked hard. Club practices are voluntary, but I would highly suggest showing up if you do want to make it to that level. I think if you dedicate yourself to it, there's the possibilities are endless. And after 1 year on the club program, he dropped 5 seconds in his 200 back. And I mean, I think already being on the campus is enough to show the coaches that you're dedicated and that you want to be at that school, but you also want to be on their team. So as long as you show progress, I mean, you're already one step there just being on that same pool deck as them. Just show up to practices, work hard, and don't put a limit on yourself, because I think I've heard of multiple cases of that happening.
So even being on the club team,
yes.
he'll still get exposure, or does he really need to be proactive with the coaches and make sure that they're seeing what he's doing at a club level?
I would suggest maybe every, if he's swimming meets, maybe every couple months, hey, just in case you didn't see this, email them. This is what I went in my time. Keep showing progress and keep showing that you're a coachable swimmer. Maybe just give them updates on time. Because I even did that when I was reaching out to reach schools, even my junior year of high school. Hey, I know I'm supposed to be getting faster to your times. By the way, did you see last weekend I went this time in the meet? Just stay on their radar proactively, and I think it's possible.
Okay, thanks. Very helpful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. I think that, one, there's no harm in showing up, and if you swim something that they have a gap in, and they were going to have this one kid come, but then they decided to not go and they're going somewhere else, or they deferred or something, they might have a gap. And so there's always a chance of that. But I think that Abby's suggestion is a really, really good one, is, doing the club thing, getting on campus, being there. It's harder to ignore somebody that's there. And a lot of these D1 schools have really phenomenal club teams, really phenomenal. Alabama has a great club team. Georgia has a great club team. You'll always have those kids that are just there for the experience, that just want to, have some fun, but you always have a core of those kids that are super talented and driven. And I think that absolutely anything is possible, and he shouldn't forfeit that idea just because he doesn't get recruited.
Great. Thank you very much.
I can even add, just being on a team, I have increased my scholarship each year, so it's not like you have a set number. So if you do end up walking on, you can have an opportunity to get scholarship. And even if you're on club, again, you have opportunities to move up and eventually be able to walk on and potentially get money maybe your senior year.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren.
Any other questions for those out there? What I'm going to do when I send out this presentation, I will also send out the emails of Lauren and Abby if you wanted to contact them specifically about one of their experiences, and then you can have them as a resource as well. Did I hear somebody about to ask a question?
Yeah, did you want to come to Centennial High School and be our coach?
Centennial doesn't have a coach this year?
We do, and he's awesome.
Okay.
He's awesome, but this has been absolutely amazing. So we really appreciate it. And we're not part of Cambridge. My nieces and nephew all went to Cambridge, but we're not part of it. So we really appreciate Lauren doing this, because it has been amazing. You guys have done a great job. So we really appreciate y'all.
If Coach James wants to reach out to me, I'd absolutely send him my stuff. So not a problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So the last thing I'd like everyone to do, I put it, if you have the Teams app, I put it in the chat. I don't know if the web-based function allows you to see the chat, but it's just a short survey to let us know that you were here. So if you want to just scan the QR code with your phone, it'll take you to just like a 2-question Microsoft document that will have you fill out your information. And that's where I'll get your email address, and I will send all of this out with all the live links and all the contact information for the 3 of us, so that you can ask any questions you might have. But please continue to follow us on Twitter and on our Cambridge website, because anytime we are going to host another one of these sessions, we will publish our information there on how to join the meeting, and so that you can be kept informed about any of these panels that we're going to have. Like I said, I really hope that we will be able to have more of these sessions, because I'd really like to see more kids from our community, not just Cambridge, but Centennial and Alpharetta, Johns Creek, all those schools. I'd love to see more of our kids pursuing athletics in college, because these girls are exceptional. Thank you so much for being here. But they're exceptional because of all the dedication that they put into everything that they do, how much care and attention they put into it. And I'm so grateful that they wanted to team up with me to do this. It's really, I think that was a really, really great opportunity for everybody that was here. So thank you so much, ladies. And that's our presentation tonight. So if you want to hang around and ask a question, you may do so, but I'm going to end the recording and then I'll send all the information out to everybody. So have a wonderful night, everybody. Thank you for coming.